Discussion that is rewriting the rules, Gen AI, and the future of enterprises. It is my pleasure to welcome our esteemed panelists for the session. I would like to welcome Varun Das, Executive Vice President and Chief Product Officer, Bharti Airtel. Piotr Veglicki, Senior Product Manager, Server BU AMD. Sorry, sir, if I mispronounced the name. Alok Shukla, Senior Principal Architect, Samsung Research India. Gaurav Garg, Vice President, Cloud and Mobile Apps, VVDN. Piyush Sinha, Director, Center of Excellence, Red Hat. And at last, please join me in welcoming the moderator of our session, Sonika Bajaj, Partner, Client and Markets, KPMG, India. A huge round of applause, everybody.
Hi, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I think I would like to thank IMC, COI, and TOT to organize this fantastic IMC year on year. I think every year it gets bigger and better. So very proud to be here. I think I say that on behalf of all my panelists here. Um, and I know it's the last session of the day. I know you guys want to go back home, so maybe we'll do a quick round of a few important questions, which I thought would be relevant for India's Gen AI journey, and where telcos play a big role. The convergence that cloud, AI, and networks are bringing in, they're opening up a realm of new possibilities for India, especially for the digital Bharat, making India a digital nation. So from that perspective, I think we've got a good mix of panelists here, and we'll love to hear from you guys in terms of how your journey has been, in terms of your own Gen AI adoption, and how do you see Gen AI create an impact on enterprises? I think we've got a mix of both Indian and global experience, so would love to hear both the perspectives. Maybe Varun, if I can start off with you. Telcos, I think, have been early adopters of Gen AI. So maybe a little bit of your journey and how you've seen Gen AI enhance telco operations, and also perspective on how an organization like yours is looking at leveraging Gen AI to create new portfolio solutions for enterprises.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonika. It's good to be at IMC, and thank you all. It is a late session, so I appreciate all of you all staying back. If you think about telcos in India, telcos are what I consider core national infrastructure, right? And the more efficiently and the more smoothly networks run, it kind of does the same for the country, right? That efficiency comes into play. And so when in 22, when this first wave of AI, which came in with generative AI, we were already on that journey with more traditional machine learning ecosystems to try and see how to run our networks efficiently. We just for context and scale, we serve about 360 million customers, about 1 million enterprises, and so operations, the scale of operations is large. And one of the things we've always looked to try and do is how do you get the best quality of service for your customers, and how do you do it at the most efficient ecosystem? It's a business where the investment is large, and essentially you have to be very efficient when it comes to running operations in this ecosystem. And so the shift, I think, what we've witnessed is we've gone from more traditional rule-based operating models to manage our ecosystems. And I'm covering broadly, when I talk about operations, networks, of course, is a big part of our ecosystem. It is also what we call our engineering infrastructure, our digital platforms, etc. And then operations in a telco also is your field force. So we have about 150,000 people on the ground. We have over 1,000 1,200 retail stores. And so operations takes many different shapes and sizes for us, and so it becomes very essential to do that. And we moved more systematically to systems that became more adaptive. And two things started driving that change. One was generative AI becoming usable and accessible. I think we went from early day models to where we are now. There's open source models, there are proprietary models that we're using. And the second thing, which is more prevalent now, which built on the Gen AI foundation, is agentic. So if you think about it, generative AI is about creating reasoning, and the agentic world is about planning, making decisions, using that reasoning to act in a more autonomous way. And if I was to address the two things you asked, if I take examples of how operations have changed, if you put the customer first, the efficiency of serving your customers is one of the easiest use cases and the most tangible use cases today for generative AI is the ability to serve your customers using conversational AI. And that's, I think, what most people have gone after, and I think it's fairly efficient. There are ecosystems like ours that have very large contact center ecosystems. We serve about 1.4 billion customers a year over just the contact centers. And so we became efficient at how we respond more natively in their language. The responses became consistent. I'll give you a simple example. We used to do collections when people would be late for their bills. Today it is all done by generative AI bots, which have neural voice. It sounds very human, but it's kind of nice. Even if you don't want to pay a bill, you'd be like, okay, fine, I'll call you tomorrow. So that's one piece. Then you look at network operations. Like I said, we were already on the journey to be efficient about understanding signals. We have a tremendous amount of data that flows through our network. The ability to monitor it becomes harder and harder as you scale. And so where we were able to get this capability to play was to really understand root cause analysis, try and understand why signals were not ideal. How do you optimize? A very simple example of that is when today, if you ask for broadband to be installed in your home or an IPTV connection in your house, the engineer uses, once they complete the installation, basically they have an assistant that tells them that all parameters are normal, you're good to go. Which means we make sure when we leave the customer's premise, everything's working as it's supposed to be. You don't have to pick up the phone call again. So these are things that made it simpler. Then you take it one more level, we get to store planning, network planning. So today we use geospatial models that allow us to plan stores where we can serve our customers better. And it's simple, like you'll find that even though I have a store here, customers across the road can't get served because it's a highway. And so we are using lead information, signals, network availability, feasibility of networks. All of this data gets put into and used by these models. So today when you interact, we are able to suggest what is the best service for you. We are able to recommend what happens. And so if you put all of these pieces together, you get to an ecosystem where productivity becomes the focus, right? You want to serve your customers better, you can be more productive at it. So if 10 people were doing the same job, one person can probably do the same, and then you can deploy the 9. So I think for us, the cost of operations from a profitability standpoint is very important. That's why efficiency is important. The service to our customers is important. When you think about broadly the industry, how I think we're thinking about portfolio is, I'll take an example of managed networks. Today, if you're a business, you will buy some hardware, some connectivity, you'll buy certain services. I think we're probably now getting to a world where we can provide solutions for managed networks where a customer says, I want to focus on running my business. Why don't you just give me security, connectivity, cloud infrastructure, and the data center ecosystem in one play, and you take care of it. So I think you get to more outcomes that you can guarantee resilience for applications for customers, and that's the kind of solutions we're trying to think about in our space. And our goal then becomes enabling more customers using the capability that we have to focus on their customers and their business, as opposed to create smaller IT shops within their ecosystem. So that,
And you're leveraging AI for that.
In many cases, yes, because if you can leverage AI to service and create a portfolio of services, then you don't actually have to. You build once and you scale multiple times, and that's really the idea behind it.
Perfect. Great insights, Varun. Thanks for that. Piotr, if I can move to you, given your global experience, just wanted to kind of understand how do you see global Gen AI adoption, and maybe if you can compare and contrast that with what we have in India, where we are in the journey. I think those insights would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is so what we see is that the adoption in India is, and the plans are quite ambitious. Okay, and I think that what we see comparing to the activity, the acceleration in adoption of Gen AI in India is very impressive. This is outsider's view. You guys see it, inside and so on, how it is. For the outsider, it looks really, really, in terms of, the speed of adoption, the startup activity is very, very strong. Enterprises are going and doing a lot of, both pilots, but also, adoptions as well. And I think that you've got more and more global players as well participating, so this is a very, very interesting and, a very, very quick adoption in that. Of course, there are, adoption is also, a function of other parameters that you've got in India, okay? There is of course, connectivity, there is say cost sensitivity, there is localization, and so many languages that you are dealing with, that for instance in other countries like in the Netherlands you will not have it. As a small country, effectively one language, and so the adoption model will be completely different. The other thing that what I think that is also India is adopting a much more edge approach as well. Okay, again for good reasons. Big country, you need to ensure that your latency is really managed. For a lot of use cases like like manufacturing, like for instance, agriculture use cases, you definitely need to do that. And so, we see this model comparing how it is actually in outside. There is a massive investment in big data centers. Okay, the investment in North America, for instance, is huge. When it comes, all of the hyperscalers are investing very heavily. Europe is adopting again. They are building 5 gigafactories, and then in addition, I think it's 20 or 30, AI factories that are being, in addition being built there. So this is a slightly different model. Another thing that, it's another aspect that you will see is that most of the countries outside of US effectively, okay, sovereign AI is absolutely key point. It's like, you need to make sure that, your data is well protected and is done there. So I think that, overall, these are the key aspects that you would see, and again, compare and contrast, it will be definitely edge versus, the centralized deployment. There is a speed of adoption as well, and scale versus localization, as I mentioned.
Thanks, Peter. I think that's a great insight where India is actually turning out to be a test bed. Just by the sheer scale and complexity that we offer, I think we can be test bed for a lot of global telcos to experiment and implement some of the upcoming use cases on agentic, perhaps. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe, Alok, if I move to you, since Piotr talked about a lot of edge use cases, and Samsung with its devices is actually enabling some of these edge use cases. I mean, I think with your devices, it's not just customer experience that you're enhancing with AI, but a lot of enterprise use cases as well. Maybe if you can share insights on how you're creating that differentiation through leveraging AI in your devices.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sanika. Interesting question. Good Good evening, everyone. So GenAI is rewriting the rules how the enterprise are actually creating, innovating, and sustaining their businesses. We are seeing a shift from automation to augmentation. AI is no longer just executing instructions; it's actually co-creating with human. Across the industries, from design to software development, from consumer experiences to entertainment, AI is redefining how the creativity and productivity at scale. At Samsung, we bring AI for all. We are making AI available at mass, everywhere, and for everyone. Samsung Galaxy devices are becoming a powerful hub for bringing enterprise Gen AI to the mass model. The Samsung Galaxy devices powered with multimodal intelligence as well as strict on-device security are empowering generative AI enterprise businesses. Samsung Galaxy devices powered with Galaxy AI, we have been transforming visual creativity. We have real-time interpreters to bring the language barriers, to break the language barriers. We have tools to summarize and kind of curate the conversations. There are multiple tools to use as an AI assistant and give personalized experiences. So the Samsung devices are becoming more intuitive, more user-friendly, and more context-aware. When it comes to the how the Gen AI and enterprise can actually work together, I see the opportunity lies in the intersection of the technologies and the convergence of telecom, AI ecosystem, and enterprise can actually take it to the leap. And with this convergence, we can actually bring Gen AI closer to the customers and can benefit customers as well as the enterprises. So I really believe that bringing generative AI content closer to the customers, utilizing these edge devices can really benefit the end users.
Awesome. And I think there's specific industries which are actually leveraging some of these capabilities, insurance, banking, where edge is making a real difference in terms of adoption.
Yes, I think today, if you see, the things have dramatically changed, right? So if you look at the insurance industry, gone are the days when you have to physically take your car to an insurance company to get an estimate. Now, with Samsung devices, bringing the multimodalities, you can just capture some of the pictures of the damage, give some text input, and then just upload it to the clients, and you can immediately get your claims approved, right? When you go to the restaurants, you don't see physical menus now. You can just do a QR scan, and I'm pretty sure very soon you will have robots delivering your foods, right?
So far as they're not ordering on our behalf, I'm fine.
I think in some of the countries it's already happening, and I know like the food delivery app in my phone knows me better than probably my wife, and it gives me so many suggestions that which are the right food for me to eat. There are health monitoring system available on device which tells me that which food is good for me. And this is all happening on a smartphone, which is being acting as a AI companion to you. So I think the things have changing dramatically, and with the combination of enterprise and edge devices, bringing this generative AI use cases closer to the customers, we can really elevate customers' experiences and business prospect.
Great. Thanks, Alok. Gaurav, if I can maybe move to you, I think another interesting use case where Gen AI is being very actively being used is the entire software development lifecycle. So maybe if you can share your experience on how Gen AI has been able to kind of reduce the complexity, increase the velocity, and just overall help speeden up or shorten the software development lifecycle?
Thank you, Sanika. A very relevant question to my area of operations. So I think we know that the software development lifecycle these days is not just the regular SDLC, but as we like to call it, Gen AI augmented SDLC. So in each of the phases of SDLC that we typically know of, for example, starting right from requirements gathering, which typically used to be quite a cumbersome process with ideas floating around in emails, in Slack messages, or as part of user stories. Now you could automate all of these through the usage of GenAI. So you could actually have a BRD written down through these various sources without any human intervention. Not just the BRD, but the acceptance criteria as well. That can typically get automated using GenAI. So that's for the requirements gathering phase. The next phase that you typically see is the design phase. So now, given your capacity, scale, and security requirements, you can actually get a GenAI model to specify a right architecture for you. It has several reference architectures built in, and it can, given your requirements, it can specifically tell you that, okay, this is the right architecture for you, and on an infrastructure of your choice, be it a public cloud or a private cloud. Then the next phase, as we know of, is coding. Coding, of course, is that phase which takes almost 50% of your SDLC time. Now we have tools from Google, from Amazon, and their third-party tools which leverage open LLMs, for example, Cursor.ai and Windsurf, that can help accelerate your coding by as much as 30 to 50%. So that to me is significant savings. And not just write codes, but it can also actually convert your code from one language to another. That's pretty powerful as well. Then next phase, as we know, is testing. Testing traditionally used to be, I mean, you used to study the BRD, you would write test cases, then you would study the code, and then you would write unit test cases. And there used to be something called as requirements traceability metrics. Now all of that is automated using GenAI. You could upload a PRD document and then get the GenAI tool to write your unit test cases. Or you could give it a code snippet and ask it to write unit test cases. That is possible as well. Or you could say that, okay, here is my BRD, here is my test specifications document, map the requirements to your test cases. So that, again, that RTM, the requirements traceability metrics, can be done as well. Then the next phase, as we know, is the phase where you are actually deploying the code. Here as well, I mean, a lot of scripts that automate this CI/CD pipeline, the generation of these scripts can be done automatically. We have Ansible, Terraform kind of scripts that specify the hardware or the application infrastructure that is required for you to successfully deploy an application. So all of that, all of those scripts can be automatically generated using GenAI. So if you pretty much look at it, pretty much end-to-end life cycle of an SDLC, that can be GenAIzed, as I like to call it. You have a choice of LLMs to use. You have a choice of several industry-specific tools that you have to use. So I think it all depends on what is your current, what is best fit in your current infrastructure, and then it's for you to leverage this powerful GenAI tool. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaurav. I think the numbers that you shared, 30 to 40% savings, that it's just commendable on the agility that the GenAI offers, specifically when we're talking about new innovations, new apps development, new use case development. I think this is going to be really handy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Piyush, if I can maybe move on to you. Varun mentioned that, obviously how he shared his journey of how telcos have been early adopters through different technologies on network enhancements, network improvements. Maybe if you can share your experience on what's the future of networks, specifically when we're talking about Gen AI, Gen Tech, you know, what, what can we anticipate and what's the journey going to look like?
So I think this is not something which we don't know. I think it's a very common topic. When you talk to any telcos, any service provider, everybody talks about autonomous networks nowadays, right? So this is something which everybody wants to get to. So there are different levels of autonomous network. I think if we talk about telcos in India, most of them are at autonomous network level 2 or 3, right? And I think Gen AI and these kind of technologies are gonna, help the telcos, the service providers to move from this 2 to 3 level to reach 4 in near and mid-term timeline. And I think the end goal is autonomous network 5, where everything is automated, right? So autonomous network 4, you are still using AI or Gen AI as assistant, right? You are taking the help from it for the insights and all that, but the control in terms of executing the automation and those things is still with the human, right? And autonomous network 5 is when everything will be fully autonomous. The control is, given back to the machine or the software. So that's what everybody is talking about. But if you look at this journey, it's talking about it is very simple, but the journey is very, very difficult because there's a lot of legacy which still exists in the telcos, right? And they have to pass through those journey of transformation, get away with the legacy systems and technologies, right? We still have 2G in India, right? We still have 2G still working there. We still have not adopted, the cloud native functionalities entirely. We still have functions which are still virtualized, still not completely cloud native. So there's a long way to go. And I don't think just India, it's all about, if you talk about 5G also, most of the customers and the operators are at NSA. They have not even went to SA. So there's a lot to do in terms of the transformation, and that's a journey they will have to go through. And of course, Gen AI will certainly help them, go through this journey a little faster, help them achieve the automations at a small, because automation is not about you automate everything end to end in one go. It's like a small step. You have to go through the smaller loops. You automate those loops in the lower layers, and then you go to the higher layers, right? So you have to start this journey, and most of the telcos around the world are in this journey, and they are going through this journey of automating the layers one after another. And once they have automated all those loops in the different layers, they will go for the end-to-end automation. I think that's where it's going towards.
Can I take a few minutes? I was just listening to all of us speak, and we talked about large network operations, and we talked about edge compute, and how SDLC can be more efficient. When I think about this again, and as I was preparing for this, you have to ask the question: where did we all begin? Right? Like it's the wonderful thing about this technology is it is accessible, it is usable by anybody. Right now, you can use it for the most advanced use cases. You can use it for the most simple use cases. And if you ask me, there are very few experts in this field. It's a little bit like we discovered fire, and then we're like, oh, you can burn something down with it, you can roast something with it. And the thing that I want to land with, and it's very relevant, when you think about rewriting the rules, a lot of the mistakes I've made and we've seen as it is, you tend to think the way we've done business till today is how it will happen tomorrow. And so if you look at what is happening with generative AI in many spaces, is we are trying to just answer questions with it. When you think about rewriting the rules for business especially, I do believe the possibilities are what you make it out to be, right? who knew you could program a network using an intelligence? Who knew you could create images using stable diffusion? And I think the core of all of this, I think all of us are in that journey. We're probably deeply in the technology of it. We're in large corporations that are funded to do it. But I think at the core of it, the reason why generative AI or agentic will be transformative in India is because India will use it the way India needs to. I don't think you can define this is how you should use it. I think we are a country that is deeply innovative. We're a country that is very sensible when it comes to how we spend. And that is where the innovation comes in. We have deep STEM talent. We have a vibrant startup ecosystem, right? The role that I see large enterprises play is creating the foundations for others to pick up, because that's where the investment is, and build models on top of it. The LLMs, if LLMs are the refrigerators, then what's inside it is what people will buy. And I think the simplicity of this escapes us when we get into like really deep conversations. Because I remember like Alok was talking about edge compute, and I was talking about I was researching fast inference on edge devices. And I realized that we all get really wowed by the tech, especially, and it can be very overwhelming for someone who doesn't understand it, or a small business owner who's trying to do something to drive efficiency. And so, in my opinion, rewriting the rules is about having an open mind and being able to apply generative and agentic and all ways of AI that come to what is most important for your customers and what is more important for your business. And I will also say that the thing that is very important for us, even at Airtel, is it's easy to say, I'm using AI for X and Y and Z, and there are two aspects to this which is very important. Data is kind of the foundational layer of how this technology works. And therefore, privacy, right? Because you're saying models know me and my family, and sure, yeah, I mean, if you ask my AI assistant, you will know half the things that I do in life, right? And so if you combine that with responsible and safe AI, if you combine what the government has initiated with the Digital Privacy Act, the ability to have traceable AI, traceability in your AI, the ability to have explainability become very critical, right? If you deal with so much data, and a great example that Gaurav gave on SDLC is when AI starts writing code for you and you don't understand what's going on and why it did what it did, that's where it becomes, well, I wouldn't say scary, but at the end of the day, like, that's where that's the focus areas. It's very easy to overlook this, right? And I think that's what I realized as we talked about it. We talked about the applications and the complexities and the cool stuff, but we all started at a very foundational level of how to use this and how to use this effectively. And I think what India will do with it will be so far beyond what others do with it because of the context, because of how we are and how we operate. I just wanted to share that. I don't know if any of you have a thought
No,
on that.
absolutely. I think that, you touched a really good point, I think AI is, so fascinating because, looking at the experience, we engineers, when we have a project and we design something like that, typically we get something less. This time we got much more, and it was like, wow, I didn't know that it could do this. And I think, to a certain extent, for operators, it was a very interesting experience as well, because, you were doing ML already, autonomous networks, SON was ongoing, before. And suddenly, sort of like generative AI became available. It's like, let's try this. And I think, that's a process that we are getting into it, really to understand, looking at my own industry, semiconductors, we enable all that, but we are in early stages as well, because the key thing for us, and it always has been, performance, but within, bound with power and the cost. Yeah. And I think that, right now, what is fascinating is the acceptance of so high power actually with the GPUs. But I think that, we will get with that, with this technology, how we can fine tune it and bring more. The other thing is, about specifically about India and what, for instance, AMD could bring, except of the, in addition to the technology, our all philosophy is open source. Okay, our competitors go different way, but for India, open source is cornerstone of the digital India, and India AI mission, and that's something that we can definitely contribute here.
That's very meaningful.
Great. Um, Very interesting insights, and maybe that's a good segue to my next question to you, Varun. Obviously, we are not talking about BAU, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about rewriting the rules.
Yeah.
So, how do you see Gen AI impacting business models? Do you see some of these transformational, compelling organizations to change the business models as well?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind, at least, that it will change business models. I think a lot of conversation today is around how do you get efficiency through automation. What in my opinion will happen is automation will become table stakes, right? To be competitive, you will have to be automated, and so as AI gets more pervasive, that's going to be true. The second thing that Pietro talked about is cost. In India, today so far, a lot of what we've done is using GPUs. GPUs were originally designed to train LLMs, fine-tune, etc. A lot of the applications are conversational AI, and if you actually think about, there are focused companies that are only selling conversational AI models. There are specialized language companies like you have. We had Bhashni when last year at IMC. We had Bhashni, which is languages for India. You have these will change. So now, when you take it conversational AI, when it comes to power consumption, when it comes to the cost of it, there is an option to use LPUs, which are way more efficient, much faster inference, better memory management, and it works. And so, not only will existing businesses rewrite, like today we're working on a FinOps model that says that if you want to use an AI capability for any use case, here is the mathematics. What do you use, an open source model? Do you use a closed source model? How many tokens do you generate? Are you efficient in it? And there's this whole economics to doing AI. And I think that is where the change in the business model comes. Now, that means beyond efficiency, the way I run my business is going to be different. The way I'll create new businesses. I'll give you the simplest example. We in India have a lot of marketing agencies that have tremendous amounts of investment in with clients. Now, I'm saying the moment we're going to move from search engine optimization to AI optimization, right? We're going to be advertising in the chat GPTs and the complexities of the world. How do agencies change that model? You're going to see, and you are seeing today, companies emerge with services that are easily consumable. In fact, with the latest release of OpenAI's ChatGPT with applications sitting inside GPT, you will start questioning, do I really need an app for everything? And so I think it's a matter of time that business models will start evolving. I think, and that's what I'm saying, like enterprises will do what they need to do to be more profitable. I think, like I said, the responsibility we have more as foundational enterprises is to create the platforms. And I think India's DPI actually already laid one very core part of the foundation. Payments in India, identity in India, financial services in India is part of your DPI, which allows you to build application layers on top of it, right? And I think what we're going to end up seeing is AI getting infused at the core of a lot of these ecosystems. So if you look at fraud, if you look at security, customer protection, everywhere. Like the example I can give you for us is we use network intelligence and AI to deal with spam. Then we took it one level further and we said we'll help protect any malicious links. And I think what's going to happen is there'll be companies that will come up. I'm saying with agentic AI, you'll come up with agent marketplaces. I can do something really cool about automating your bills. Like you said, I can do something cool about ordering your groceries every month. In fact, you can do it today. If you have the Comet browser, You open Blinkit and you say, I want to serve dinner for 5 people and I want to make butter chicken, it'll give you everything and I submit. So I think that's where we're headed. Business models are going to change. You'll have smarter, more efficient companies. I believe we're in the age of builders. We'll have companies that'll be 1 to 5 people, and they'll be very high potential unicorns, in my opinion. And they'll all sit on top of this infrastructure. So,
Interesting future. Maybe Piotr, if I can move to you, we talked about the need for responsible AI, but how does one go about it? Is there a governance framework that that Indian companies can adopt around?
Absolutely. So I think that the key thing is establishing, the governance, sort of like governance framework for AI, responsible AI, starting with the foundational principles. And Varun mentioned a few minutes ago, one of these would be transparency. You need to be able to explain all of the decisions, that AI has made, and trace them, okay? The other one, principle will be, for instance, non-discrimination and fairness, Again, looking into the models, looking into the algorithms, and making sure that there is no hidden bias. Next one would be accountability, okay? So in other words, someone has to own it. Someone has to own AI decisions, So this is, human supervision, human in the loop type of model, principles there. Then you will have, security and privacy, which is extremely important, So again, protecting models, data and users, from the breaches, So making all of that, then it will be reliability and safety. So in other words, the model needs to work always in the intended way, no matter what conditions, So you need to, first of all, establish this framework. Then you have to have the processes to do. You have to have the right supervision. You have to have the right people, who decides about, about model being, signing off a model. Who is supervising the data usage, for instance, So these are who decides about the risk, which is another factor that you would need to establish what is the acceptable risk and almost like rate it, high risk, mid, and low risk for using AI, as well as putting a certain boundary saying for certain cases, there will be no AI used without a human signing. Let's take like legal. Enterprises can say, and probably they will, saying, okay, there will be no legal AI generated documents that will be sent sort of directly without someone checking that. So I think that these are the key areas that you need to look into the framework there.
Great, thanks, Piotr. Interesting insights there. Moving on, maybe Alok, if I can maybe come to you. Startups play a key role in innovation, and I think AI is also a story of collaboration. So how do you see that spanning up, and how do you see organizations like yourselves speeding up the innovation process through partnerships with maybe startups, big tech players across?
Sure. So I truly believe that startups play a pivotal role in generative AI ecosystem, especially because they are more agile, they are ready to experiment, they are more prepared to take risk and do advanced research. They are actually not able to scale much, but that's where I think the big organizations can actually help. So I truly believe to really accelerate the GenAI adoption, both the large-scale enterprise and the startups should come together. Startups bringing more creativity and more consumer-facing experiences building, and the large enterprises are providing the infrastructure, scalability, and with this collaboration, we can really accelerate the GenAI adoption. I think we are ahead of the hype cycle of generative AI, and I think now we have to focus more on building those custom LLMs, which are specific to the use cases and the adoption. And of course, for those purposes, we will need large amount of customized data creation, curation, and filtering. And these are the areas where startups can take a lead and collaborate with the bigger enterprises to help them and go hand in hand to give better experiences to our customers.
Great. Um, Maybe if I can move on to you, Gaurav. Obviously, a critical enabler of AI adoption in any organization is the readiness of the workforce. So, I mean, what are your what's your thought process on what's the critical adoption path that organizations should take in terms of training, reskilling their workforce, and also redefining the workflows? Because, as you mentioned, taking the example of software development lifecycle, some certain processes will be redundant. So how do we kind of redefine this entire?
Thanks, Anika. I think uh, as a leader who is seeing this transition happen and in many ways directing this transition, uh, it is extremely important that a leader lays down the vision of how does he or she sees his organization evolving. Vision in terms of, okay, I want my workforce to be GenAI ready in the next few weeks, months, and here's a roadmap. I want my engineers to be trained on so and so tool set by so and so time. Uh, then it has to also translate into investments into trainings. We know that this is quite a transformational change from a regular SDLC to a GenAI based SDLC. So adequate investments have to be made in terms of trainings. There have to be trainings done on all the GenAI based tools. Number three uh, that I foresee is also about a lot of workflows will have to be redefined, redesigned, meaning that you would not typically have, for example, um, in our good old days, we used to have something called, there's a concept called peer programming. You would have one person write the code, other person review the code. Now, this writing of code would now be done by, let's say, your GenAI assisted tool, and the review part being undertaken by the human. So again, we see a complete change in how this entire process or the workflow will look like. Um, Likewise, a leader also has to ensure that all departments of the organization come together. So it is not just that the engineering department alone has to kind of can make this happen. It has to also be supported by the HR department in terms of kind of designing the training roadmap for the team, in terms of ensuring that the designations are likewise changed. So all aspects of HR also get impacted. Likewise, your legal team as well. I think the teams have to very well understand the finer nuances when it comes to how can I responsibly use AI. Can I upload my a client BRD document into an open AI model, or do I have to create a private cloud to be able to do that? So all of those sensitive questions have to be kind of a framework laid down to ensure that all of these teams, the HR, the legal, and the software engineering team, they all can come together and then lay down the rules of the game. So pretty much a leader has to kind of ensure that all of these aspects are covered, and then I think is all set to kind of take the organization to this GenAI journey. Thank you.
Yeah.
To learn what Gaurav talked about, the knowledge worker and what that evolution is going to be, right? I think one thing we should talk more about is you have to have early education. We're today adapting as a generation to what is coming as a change, right? I think ultimately you need a generation that is natively trained, which means you need the academy, the enterprise ecosystem, and the government to be in lockstep to create early access in education, which is part of the curriculum, like a language is, for that matter of fact, right? Because it's a very simple example. Think about how many of us, your generation, speaks to a Siri or a Google natively. We don't. You take the alphas, they will converse with it fluently. They think differently. And I think that comes from a very foundational setup. We did this for technology in our country with the IITs, and I think this is where early education, going deep, going early is very critical to change the workforce beyond. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, like, and Gaurav talked about it very realistically, it's something we're dealing with today, but I think we also need to think about how early can you get into this ecosystem so people are more tuned to
Yeah,
it.
and one of the changes happening actually, talking about my son who's the 8th standard, he has AI in his curriculum. But of course, I agree with you. I mean, it's not there. Maybe in metros we have, tier 1 cities, we have those privileges of.
I think if you think about this space, uh, universal access to this technology, and I said this earlier, it is a easy to access technology. It's one of the things we did consciously is we gave 360 million Airtel customers access to Perplexity. Think about this, right? Like it's not just about access. People who wouldn't have generally interfaced with this tech can now experience it in a way that they wouldn't have. I think that is the kind of impact that will leave the curiosity going, and that's kind of universal access and early education starts changing the workforce generationally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the need is to institutionalize that across the country. Yeah, yeah. Piyush, maybe if I can move on to you, I think, I mean, just quoting one of the surveys that KPMG did, and while, a lot of, majority of the TMT executives we surveyed said that, they are seeing AI as a must to maintain competitive edge in the market. I think substantial portion, almost close to around 65%, also said that there is a pressure on them to demonstrate ROI. So, how do we address this elephant in the room in terms of ensuring there's adequate ROI? How do you measure it? And how do you kind of actually implement and make sure that, some of the investments that are being made now are not obsolete 6 months down the line, given the pace of technology change?
It's very, there's no one answer to this question because ROI, how do you calculate, how do you achieve it, how do you measure it? It all totally depends on the type of use case, right? You are using this technology for, right? So if the use case is about efficiency, right? And that efficiency is OPEX reduction. So there are certain KRAs and time to resolve, turnaround time, and then the effort which is required to resolve a problem and all that stuff. So you have those KRAs already established. You have it today as well. So only thing which will differ in this case is when you deploy this technology, GenAI, for achieving all these things, you'll have to see what is the efficiency you are getting against these KRAs, right? So, and if you have a use case which is more related to customer experience, right? So you have to measure it. The KRAs are all defined against those use cases. So you have net promoter score, for example, right? So you can use GenAI technologies to arrive at net promoter score. You can see how accurate it is coming. How is your net promoter score improving after deploying those technologies? So I don't think the problem is how do you measure it, because all those KRAs are very well established. It totally depends on what use case, for what purpose you are utilizing this AI technology, and against those KRAs, how are you performing?
And I think that's where the key is also to to identify the use cases intelligently, because I mean, given the cost economics, not everything will warrant agentic implementation.
Yeah.
Something maybe can be best achieved with traditional AI itself.
Absolutely. I think Varun has been talking about it, right? So the use cases totally differs from organization to organization, right? It differs from country to country. What is relevant in first world countries might not be relevant for India, for example. So we all will have to come up with our own use cases, the use cases which are more relevant to our environment, and act accordingly, because it's nothing good, bad, ugly about it. It's all about what is the relevance there.
Brilliant. I think with this, I think we are almost at the top of the hour. So I think great insights. Clearly, AI is transforming telco operations. Uh, Maybe also forcing telcos to use AI, but given the network diversity that is required from the applications that are being built out, the network diversification. So all of those, I think, are also in a way forcing organizations to use innovation and technology to optimize their operations. But I think the brilliance of the entire conversation is also how telcos, along with in collaboration with cloud providers and AI big tech organizations, are also helping and enabling a scenario where enterprises can leverage these technologies and bring some of the relevant use cases home. I think the brilliant insights there. Maybe I'll quickly open open the floor for questions. Do we have time? Sorry. Oh, you have.
Thank you. I did get a chance to sit through panel discussion and just have a question. So I listened to Varun, I listened through Piotr. And I know we talked about the traceability and the explainability of AI. As a consumer, so there are many young generation who are using it, and I myself is using, we are using it, right? How do we ensure that the output that we are getting is error-free? uh, we are we may be using it in a lot of our deliverables. There was a recent scenario when there's a large company utilized AI in their report and they had to pay a fine. And you also explained that we need to have a certain risk rating while we are using the AI. So how can we ensure that what we are getting from AI it's going to be error free?
That's a great question, and thanks for asking it. It would be very presumptuous of me to say that I know the answer to how to make it error-free. The nature of the technology is probabilistic, right? So you're not going to live the error-free world with generative AI. It's just not going to happen, right? I'll give you a very simple example. If you ask it to multiply a 100-digit number with a 100-digit number, it'll most likely get it incorrect because it's based on what it learns. So, but the question is still relevant. If I'm going to use it, how do I minimize the error, or how do I keep it within a framework? And so, what we've been doing is working on a framework that allows us to put the checks and balances. The reason I talked about explainability and traceability is we're a very highly regulated ecosystem, and it's our responsibility to keep our customers safe and comply with what is required of us. And so we are building a multi-agent AI framework that defines how each agent, what is the purpose, what is the goal, how do you audit it? I talked about data privacy, right? I have to be prepared in a way with that framework which says anytime someone asks the question, why did you do X, I should be able to give an answer. And so I don't think you can guarantee correctness, but you can definitely ensure transparency, accountability, and a framework that allows you to get to closest to where you want to. And I think that's where you don't want to use generative ecosystems for advice, financial advice. People use it, but it's probabilistic. And so until we get to a point where you can deal with hallucination or you get to an advanced level of capability, that is why responsible AI is important. That's why it's a great question.
So,
And I think,
sorry,
no, please go ahead.
yeah, so see, there are 4 parameters. One, so when you use this all open AI models and chat GPTs of the world, see, when we say that, because those models do exist today also, and they are free of cost, why still the enterprises are still doing a lot of POCs and so many things to adopt AI in their own business? Because